So good morning to one and all. We are going to start with our second chapter of your unit 3. We completed our first chapter, that is your introduction to JSP, that is Java Server Pages. Okay, and now we are going to start with our second chapter. So the second chapter name is Getting Started with Java Server Pages. So here we are going to learn about the custom tags which we were talking about in our first chapter, that the custom tags which are differ from your HTML tags and which are going to help us to embed our Java code and the HTML code inside the Java programs. So all those tags, how it is going to work for us, that we are going to learn in this particular chapter. So we will start with a very basic thing, that how you're going to have the comments in your JSP. So first of all, why we make a comments in any programming language. It's not only about the JSP. In any programming language, we make a comment just for the better understanding of the flow of a program. Okay, just like for example, I am a developer, I am developing some code, and if I am having a good habit of giving the comments in my program, so if at all any other person comes and it wants to just understand the code which I have written, so it is very much useful for those people who will try to understand through your comments. Okay, so if you have written something like differently, which you think that people will not be understanding it in one, the go that they will go through your code and they should understand. So for that need, you should have a good habit of making a comments. Okay, so JSP comments are also there, which is going to help us to understand that what lines of code are explaining to us. Okay, and then the JSP container or a JSP engine, which is responsible to execute your JSP page, is going to ignore those statements which are given as a comments. Okay, and it is for every language. Like if I talk about the Java language, the compiler is going to ignore the comments whichever we are going to provide it. So similarly, even in C, C++, even in Python, if you provide the comments, we are going to, like, the container or the engine is going to ignore it. Fine. Now the syntax which we have for having the comments in our JSP is this one. We can start with this percentage sign. If you can see, as I told you, we have a custom tags. Okay, so you always remember the tags which has an opening tag will always have an ending tag. It is similar to your HTML. Okay, so we have an HTML tag, opening tag, and then we have a closing HTML tag also with a backslash. So this is like a syntax of your JSP comment. So whatever you're going to write inside this two things, it is going to be considered as what your comments. Okay, how you're going to use your comments. So basically we have two types of comments in JSP. We have a server side comments and we have a client side comments. We'll see one by one. So we'll see the first one, that is a server side comment. So basically, again here, whatever you are going to comment using specific syntax for having the server side comments, it is going to be hide. It is going to be like not been read by your engine, servlet engine or a servlet container. Okay, and it has been ignored whenever you're going to have a even translation from JSP page to the servlet page. So what is the syntax? The syntax which you have seen just in the last slide is the same syntax we are going to follow, and that has been considered as your server side comment. Okay, so this is the tags which you have to use it, starting with percentage sign, and then whatever you're going to write inside this, it is going to be considered as your server side comments. Okay, so we can see over here, whatever you can write inside this, it is being identified as comments. You can write any form of comments into that. You can make use such type of comments just for writing the author's names or the date and the copyright notices. Okay, so all those things you can write inside the comments to make yourself understand that what exactly mean the program is. Okay, now the next one is what your client side comments. So client side comment is little bit differing from your client server side comment. So in the client side also, again, the whatever comments you're going to write inside your JSP page, it is been ignored, but the syntax is going to differ. The syntax is you're going to start, instead of percentage sign, you're going to start with your exclamatory mark. Okay, so you just have to use this bracket. Okay, opening bracket, you should write the exclamatory sign, and then whatever you're going to write, please write it inside these statements, and then you can have double hyphen and then close it. So this is a syntax of your client side comments. So I hope you will remember server side. In server side comments, what will happen, we'll have a percentage sign, and In client side, we are going to start with an exclamatory mark ending with 2 hyphen. Fine, this is your client side comment. Now, we can see one simple example for having a JSP comment. So for example, I'm writing the HTML code because we are allowed to embed our HTML code in our JSP. Okay, so if I'll just write JSP tag over here just above the HTML, so automatically my code is going to become an JSP code. Okay, so what I'm trying to do, I just wanted to have one small comment to my page. So what I have done, I just have used a percentage sign. So I hope you remember why we are using this percentage sign and what is the type of this. This is a server side comment, and we have written some statement inside that, and this is going to be ignored. So whatever it has been written inside your HTML is been considered, it is been shown to your web page, but whatever you have written inside this is been ignored. Okay, so this is just an example of your server side comments. Now we'll have some syntaxes, more syntaxes, and then we'll see what is the purpose of those syntax. So this is like a JSP comment. Okay, we know what is the meaning of this. This is a server side comment. It has been ignored by JSP engine. It is your client side comment. It has been ignored by your browser, client browser. These two are there. It's starting with the backslash, ending with the backslash also. So it both are going to be like representing a static literal, or you can say you can able to declare the static literal between these two tags. So this is an opening tag, and you can declare any static literal. You can say literal or a variable, like it can be a floating variable, it can be a double variable, integer variable, or a string variable. So whichever type of variable you want to declare, and you want to assign the value, that means the value is not going to change at the runtime. So it is not a dynamic literal, it is a literal which we can define it static literal between these two tags. So this is going to be your opening tag, define some variable, close it. Okay, and that variable should be a static literal or a variable, and these two are meant for defining the string values. We all know that the single quote is been defined for the characters and the double quotes are defined for the string value, that is combination of all the characters. Okay, so if I'll define a, so that means it has been done with the help of a single quote, and if I'm defining with double, so I can say apple. So apple is a combination of a character, so it has been defined with the help of a double quote in an attribute. Fine. Now we'll go to the next topic, that is what your JSP documents. So here we have two things. You just have to understand that JSP pages are been written as a namespace aware XML document. So now what do you mean by namespace? First of all, you have to understand that namespace means you have the different identifiers for your JSP page, and your JSP page should be identified differently. So that name, whatever we are assigning it to it, so it is been something known as namespace. Okay, now here we have two things. One is your JSP page and one is your document. Whenever we talk about the JSP page, the page which is written is going to follow the HTML format. Okay, so in whatever format you are writing your HTML codes, okay, you will start with an HTML tag, you might go to the head tag, then you'll start with a body tag, and then you are closing the body tag, then head tag, then HTML tag. Same format we have it for the JSP. The only thing is that the tag names are different in JSP. Okay, so whenever you're going to create a JSP page for your application, we are going to follow an HTML format to do that. Okay, and whenever we are going to write in JSP elements, we are always going to follow some this kind of a tags. Okay, now when we talk about the JSP documents, so JSP document is not going to follow an HTML format, it is going to follow an XML format. Okay, so whichever elements you are going to write, the JSP elements, it is going to be expressed similarly like your XML elements. Fine. Now as we know that JSP documents is following and it is been written in the XML format, so therefore it should and must comply the XML standard. Now what are the XML standard, what are the XML rules, that we will see it in the next slide. So we have to understand that when we are saying that JSP documents is following the XML format, means it should follow the XML standards also. So what are the XML standards and what are the document rules we have to follow whenever we are going to make use of JSP documents? So first rule, that is each start tag must have corresponding end tag. Okay, so whenever we are going to create a JSP document, that JSP document will be having a start tag as well as your end tag. There should be an end tag. Also, your document must have only one root element. Okay, it should be have what, only one root element. That is mandatory because your XML also having one root element, so your document should also follow that rule. Third, the JSP document must be saved with .jspx extension. Fine, your JSP page gets stored with .jsp. When you store your document file, that is your .jspx, it has been understood that you have not created a JSP page, but you have created a JSP document. Okay, then it comes the syntax of, like, we are saying that we are following the XML format, so we also have some format to write a JSP document which is following your XML format and standard. So how it is going to start? First of all, it is going to have a start tag, so always it is going to start from JSP. Okay, and as I told you that we should have only one root element, so we are defining that root element over here. Then we should must define the version. If you see any XML tags, the starting tags or an XML format and XML files, you will see this first statement written in your XML file. Okay, always try to create an XML file and see your first statement is going to be this only. So it is going to have the XML written over here instead of JSP. They have been they have been writing as root as an element, and then we are going to have the version also for the XML. So similarly we are going to follow, because we are just following the standard of XML, so we'll mention the version of the JSP over here, so that is 2.1. Then we are going to make use of XML NS. That means we are just going to provide a namespace for our JSP document. Okay, and for that need you are going to make use of XML NS, which stands for XML namespace. Fine, so this namespace is available with XML, which you are trying to implement in your JSP document, so that's why you're making use of XML NS. Fine, now what we are going to do, we are just going to make use of the path or the like name which we are providing it to our namespace, or we are just putting into our namespace, so that our XML or JSP page is going to understand the JSP document properly. So we have written this name over here. Fine, by default the content type which we are going to write in your JSP document is been considered as your text/XML file. Okay, if you want to make it to display the document as an HTML, so you just need to make the change of it by manually. You don't, it is not going to be like by default. By default it is text/XML. So what you have to make is, you have to make it text/HTML. So if you want to make the JSP document contents to be visible to your client, so what you have to make, you have to do it, you have to change your XML to your HTML, because the content can be displayed only with the web page or the HTML page. Okay, so the XML is not responsible to show the content to your client, so the HTML is responsible for that. So you have to make the changes while coding and while developing the program using this JSP document. I hope you have understood these rules. We should have an start tag and end tag. It should have at least like only one root element. It should be saved with .jspx extension. It is following standards of your XML. Also it is making use of namespace of your XML, this one. So what we have to do, we have to make use of the same syntax but with some minor changes. We're going to have a start tag that is been written as JSP, but in XML it is written as XML. Okay, so we are following the standard. So we'll start with the JSP, we'll write the root element, we'll write a version, we'll write a namespace name, that is your XML NS, and then we're going to provide the name. Okay, now here by default, as I told you, it is going to be text slash XML, the JSP document, because it is following XML standard. So we have to make it available for the client, and it should be readable, and it should be visible to the client, and that should be available with the help of your HTML. So change that XML to your HTML. Okay, now there is an example. We are going to start with our JSP, as we have started just in the last slide we have shown you. So we are going to have a root, we have an XML NS, we'll have a path. Okay, we have defined the version. So this is how you're going to write it, and you can just write any content in either in HTML or in JSP. So always remember that you're going to start with your JSP tag. You have to end it with JSP this way. Okay, so this is like JSP colon root if you're writing. So you are making your program understand that you're making use of JSP document. And secondly, how you're going to make your program understand that you're using JSP document, that you are going to save your file with .jspx. Fine. So this is one which we have started, that is your start tag, and we are going to end it with a backslash. So it is similar like way you're going to start with your HTML and you're going to end your HTML tag. Fine. Now we have some JSP elements, or you can say we have some JSP tags, custom tags, which we were talking about so much from the last chapter. So we are going to see the all tags now. So it all comes inside your JSP elements, or you can also say that it is a JSP tags. Fine. So we have mainly three groups of tags, JSP tags, or you can say the elements which are available in JSP. So the very first is what your Jsp scripting elements. We have a Jsp directive element and we have a Jsp standard action elements. Okay. In this chapter, we are going to see the first and second, like whichever included the subtopics. This third topic, this third type, okay, it is whole chapter. The next chapter is the action element. The chapter name is itself is an action element. Okay, so we are going to focus more in that chapter. So here we are going to learn about all those things which is mentioned over here. Fine. So now we are going to start one by one with all the elements. So what scripting element first, we have to understand that. I hope you remember, you should remember that what all things we are going to learn today. That is your JSP, scripting elements and JSP directive elements. Fine. So first is what your JSP scripting elements. Now the scripting elements is going to provide you, it is able to insert the Java code inside your JSP. Okay, from the first chapter we are saying that we are being able to, we are allowed to have a Java code inside a JSP. How it is going to happen, we will see one by one using all those four tags, four types which has been mentioned over here. It is going to help us to do that. Okay, so the scripting elements, you just have to remember that it is the element or a tag which are going to provide the developer, or which will make possible for the developer to insert the Java code inside your JSP tags. Okay, JSP scripting elements are written inside your these tags. These codes are going to be written inside this specific tag, that is your starting tag of your JSP and your ending tag of your JSP. Don't confuse with your comments, because after this percentage you're going to write something else, so it is automatically going to change the meaning of these tags. Okay, so comments, obviously it is been written inside this, or you can have an exclamatory mark, but the tags are going to be same. Okay, so tags after this percentage we have to write something over here, then it is going to differ the meaning of these tags. Fine, we'll see that. Now we are going to make use of these tags for processing, and it has been processed by your JSP engine. It is going to translate the JSP page, whatever we are going to write the Java code. Processing means it is going to have a separation of the Java code for the Java beans, so that your Java beans can understand your servlet code or a Java code, and as per the processing and the logic which has been written for the Java, it has been understood by your Java bean, and the response being generated with the help of your database. Okay, so here we have the four types of scripting elements. I hope you have understood what scripting elements are, and then we are going to have four types of scripting elements. First is what your scriptlet tag, we have an expression tag, we have a declaration tag, and we have a comment tag. So we'll see one by one all. First is what your scriptlet tag. Now, scriptlet is a valid code in Java, and it is been placed inside your JSP service method. So students, if you remember the diagram, the life cycle of your JSP, so that time I have told you there are three steps. Okay, there are three layers only for the JSP lifecycle. One is your instantiation, one is your request processing, and one is your destroy. Okay, but in instantiation it all depends on the assumption whether the instance of a servlet has been created or not. Okay, if it is created, then it is going to directly to the going directly to the request processing step. And if the instance is not created and if it is older than the JSP page, then it has to create a new one. For creating the new instance, it has to follow the 5 sub steps. Okay, so I hope you have remembered that 5 steps. We have a compilation, we have translation, we have instantiation, we have initialization. Okay, so all those things we have to follow it. If you remember, we had a JSP init method for initialization, and for request processing, we have a JSP service method. And when we say that the scripting elements is responsible for including the Java code in my JSP tags, in my scripting tags, so what is going to happen? I'm going to have that separation of Java code, okay, for my Java bean. So that means what I'm doing it, I'm right now into my second step, that is what processing of the request. I'm trying to interpret the request, I'm trying to convert that request into the servlet code or a Java code. And whenever I'm going to make use of request processing step, every time I'm going to have a JSP service method. Okay, because JSP service method is meant for the second step, that is your request processing. Fine. So here what is going to happen, assuming that we have a Java code, we have an instance, now we have to translate that code. While translation, the request is going to be processed now in your Java bean. So for that need, which method we are going to use, that is your JSP service method. Fine. And you're going to write you're going to have a syntax in this way. You're going to have a tag where you're going to write a Java code. Fine. And just an example for your JavaScript or JSP Scriptlet tag. So what we are going to do, we're just going to start with a percentage. As I told you, it depends what you're writing inside it. Okay, so if you're just writing inside with the slash star, the way we used to write the comments. Okay, so if you're going to write like that way, it has been considered as your comments inside the tags. If you're writing or if you're making use of any Java statements, the meaning of the statements are going to get differ over here. Okay, so what you're going to write now, so simply we want to print one welcome message. So that we do in our Java with the help of out.print statement or print ln statement. Okay, so you just have to understand two things over here. Whenever you're going to make use of scriptlet tag, always understand that we are going to make use of JSP service method, and whichever code you're going to write, it is going to be placed inside your this method. Okay, so there is another tag also available in this scriptlet elements, where the tags is been written outside the JSP method. It is not been written inside it. Okay, so that difference we are going to see. So don't worry about that. Just remember that we are going to place the code of your Java inside your JSP service method. Okay, that you have to understand one thing over here. Secondly, we are going to have just a statement which we want to print it. Okay, the welcome message you can say. So we have just written inside. So how you're going to embed your Java inside your JSP, that we wanted to see over here. So we have a tag that is a custom tags of your JSP, and we are trying to embed a Java program or a Java statement inside it. So what we are making use of, we are making use of scriptlet tag. And how you're going to make use of it, so you are going to make use of this specific syntax, that is you're starting with your percentage sign, you just write a Java statement. So we are just considering this is like one JSP file, and where we are embedding our Java statement. Fine. So it is allowing us because we are trying to make use of scriptlet tag. Okay, so this is how you're going to make use of JSP service method and the scriptlet tag. Now, the next one is what your Jsp expression tag. So you have to understand over here, the expression tag is written for the output stream for the responses. Okay, so whatever task has been done by your out.print statement, what out.print statement is doing for us, it is going to print the values for us. Okay, it is going to allow us to write the data for the client. So here we don't need to write the out.print statement. It is been done with the help of your JSP expression tag. How it is been done? So the syntax is you're going to make start again with the percentage sign, but you're going to make use of one more symbol, that is what equals to. And whatever statement you're going to write it, it is going to be printed. Okay, so in the previous program, if you have seen in the scriptlet tag, we made use of Java statement, that is your out.print to print some welcome message. Okay, so that can be replaced, that can be ignored by using the JSP option available, that is your expression tag. Just start with equals to and write that statement which you want to print for the client. So welcome to JSP is one of the welcome message for the client which we want to try to print. and you don't want to don't make to use of this out.print statement. Fine. So this has been replaced by your expression tag. Third thing which you have to understand, that you don't have to end your statement with a semicolon in case of your expression tag. So if you can see over here, what we are doing it, we are making the use of out.print. We are printing the welcome message and we are ending with a semicolon. Okay, that you have to ignore in your expression tag. So what we have to learn from this, it is a replacement of your out.print statement for displaying the data for the client. Okay, what is the syntax? It is going to start by equals to sign, and whatever you want to print, write it in the double quotes. Don't end it with semicolon. Okay, now third thing is your declaration tag. Now the declaration tag is going to be used to declare the variables and the methods. Here it is written fields and methods. So your knowledge fields is also been known as variables. So variables and methods you can declare inside your declaration tag. Now, as I told you, we have the previous tag, that is your scriptlet tag, and I told you that the scriptlet tag must be written inside your JSP service method. This declaration tag is going to be placed outside the service method. Okay, this is like one difference you have between your scriptlet and declaration tag. What is the syntax for doing that? So we are going to start again with this. This is a standard format to write the JSP code. So you have to remember, it is always going to start with your percentage sign. Okay, if I want to have the expression, we are going to make use of expression tag. So we are going to start with equals to, and in scriptlet it is very much normal. We don't have to make use of anything like equals to or the exclamatory mark. We just have to make use of Java code. Okay. Now here in declaration tag, if I want to declare any method or a variable, I have to start with exclamatory. Fine. Again, don't confuse with the comment that it is a client side comment. It is starting with exclamatory, but it is not ending with the double hyphens. Okay, so that is going to make difference between your client side comment and your declaration tag. So now here, if I can just give you the difference, the scriptlet tag, as I told you, it is going to be placed inside the JSP service method. It is going to be placed outside the JSP service method. Here the scriptlet tag and declaration is also having one more difference, that the JSP scriptlet tag can only declare variables. They're not able to declare methods. Okay, and the declaration tag is able to declare both the variables as well as your methods. I hope you have understood this difference. Now we can see the example of your declaration tag. Fine. So we have a JSP file. We started with a JSP tag. Then we have embedded the HTML tag for the design, for the look and feel. Then we are making use of the expression tags, or we can make use of the declaration tag, which we are learning right now. So as I told you in the syntax, the declaration tag is going to start from your exclamatory mark. See, the very first thing what we have learned is comments. Okay, so comments are going to start with your this percentage sign. You can have a backslash double star and with double star backslash. Then we have a client side comments that is starting with the exclamatory mark ending with double hyphen. Then we are learning with, like, we are learning the different types of tags, or we can say the elements, JSP element. So first type of element was your scripting element. In that we have four types. So scriptlet tag, we have scriptlet tag is allowing you to embed the Java code, as we have embedded out.print statement. Okay, second was your expression tag. In expression tag, what we have done, we have made the use of equals to sign just to remove the use of the out.print statement. Third is what your declaration tag, and in declaration tag we are going to make use of exclamatory mark. Why we are using the declaration tag? Because we want to declare a variable and a method which is allowed. Okay, the scriptlet tag is going to be present inside your JSP service method, and your declaration tag is going to be present outside your JSP service method. Your scriptlet tag is only declaring the variables, able to declare variables. So declaration tag is able to declare both the variables as well as your methods. Okay. Now here how we are going to declare the variables. So we have made use of exclamatory mark as defined in the syntax. We are going to declare a variable with a data type. We will assign the value, we'll end it with semicolon. Okay. In expression tag, we were not allowed to end the statements with your semicolon, that we don't have to use it. Okay. And here again we are making use of what now, this is that now you have to understand. Okay, so this is your declaration tag. We have declared a variable using this declaration tag. Now we are making use of expression tag. That means we want to just print a statement for our client. Okay, so what statement we are trying to print, we have just replaced out.print. We are not making use of scriptlet tag, but we are making use of expression tag. And if you want to make use of scriptlet tag, what you have to write, out.print, and inside the brackets you have to write values of the variables is the variable name you have to write. Right now what is the variable name, it is 50. So this data variable is holding the 50 value, and it is been like shown over here, it is been tried to print over here. We have just written one statement in the double quotes which has been printed as it is. So either you can go with the scriptlet tag using out.print statement, or simply you can go with the expression tag, which is going to replace the out.print by double this one equals to sign. Okay, and this is like one example we have used for declaration tag. We can see the another example also for having the declaration of methods. So how you're going to start with, again you have an exclamatory mark, you have created your method, that is what method name cube, we have a return type. Okay, and we are declaring one parameter, that is what n variable inside your method that is allowed. Okay, now what we are returning, we are returning the multiplication, or we can say the cube, that is n into n into n. So whatever value this n is going to hold is going to be multiplied 3 times. I hope this you can understand. This is like basic code what we have done in the very first semester. Okay, so we have defined a method, we have a variable defined inside it, so we are just returning the value, and we are returning what, the cube of the value or the variable which we have defined inside the method, like 3 times multiplication. Now as I told you, the variables are like we can define it like this way, we can define the methods in such a way. Now what we are doing, we are just uh, making use of again the expression tag. Okay, and we are trying to print that cube of 3 is, and what we are doing, we are just invoking the method which we have created, that is what, cube. The method name is what, cube. And what is been expected inside this method, our integer value. So what we are passing, 3. So this n is going to hold which value, 3. So accordingly, if the value of n is 3, what is going to be printed, 3 into 3 into 3. Okay, so the 3 cube is what, 27. Fine. Now last of your scripting element, that is what, your JSP comment. So we have inside the scripting element scriptlet tag, we have expression tag, we have declaration tag, and we have a comment tag. Comment tag is the one same which we have learned in the very starting slide. That is, we have two types of comments, that is server side comments and the client side comments. Okay, so you know how to start with the server side comments and the client side comments. Fine, so you can write similar thing over here. Now the second thing is what, your JSP directive element. Okay, so now the JSP directive are going to be like used, and they are the actually messages which is going to tell the web container or a servlet container that how to translate your JSP page into the corresponding servlet. So that conversion, how it happens with the help of your JSP directive elements. So you are going to make that, you can say, the understanding to the web container, you're going to make the web container understand that how the translation happens, okay, between your JSP and the servlet. So we are going to have the 3 types of directives, and they are page directive, include directive, and the tag lib directive. Okay, so if I can just give you the syntax of the JSP directive. So always remember, your directive elements are going to start from your @ sign. Okay, so whatever you have learned about the scripting elements, I hope you should remember. Your scriptlet tag will start with only percentage sign with the Java code embedded into it, like your out.print statement. we have the expression tag, which is going to replace out.print statement with equals to sign. Then we have the JSP declaration element, which is going to have the declaration of methods and the variable. We have seen both the example. Okay, and the third one was your comment. So you know there are two types of comments, that is your server side comment and the client side comment. Now the first element type is done. We are going to start with your JSP Directive Elements, and as I told you, the JSP directives are basically the messages for the web container. It will tell to the container that how it is going to have the translation between your JSP and your servlet. Okay, for that need we have three types of directives. That is, one is your page directive, then we have include directive, and we have a tag lib directive. The syntax for the same for the JSP directive, always remember it is going to start from @sign. Okay, and you have to define which type of directive you are going to use. Either it is page, include, or tag lib, and you have certain attributes which are defined in the next slide. I'll just show it to you. So we have some attributes. We are going to make use of that attributes, and for that attribute we are going to create some values. Okay, so first of all we just have to understand that what all attributes we have. So we are going to have the first type of directive, that is what your JSP page directive. We can see over here there are three types of directives we have, that is your page directive, include directive, and tag lib directive. Here we are going to start with the first type, that is what your page directive. Okay, and what is the syntax for the page directive? It's starting with @sign, it is same, and we are defining the directive name, which directive we are going to use. So the first type is your page directive, so we are going to make use of page directive over here, and we are going to have certain attributes. So those attributes are these attributes. Okay, so you can make use of any of these attributes, and you can assign the value that what this attribute has to do it. Fine. So we have number of attributes over here. We'll see few of the attributes with an example. So first one is what your import attribute. So what you're going to do, you're going to make use of @sign, because it is going to hint your program that you are making use of directives. Okay, and which type of directive you are using? You are using the page directive. And which attribute you are using it, that is your import attribute. Okay, why import attribute is being used? If you want to make use of any packages in your JSP, okay, so you can make use of that by simply having this attribute called as import. We all know that why import statements are being used in Java, because we want to make the use of the packages in our program. So we can just have the import java.util.star in the very starting of the program, but you are making use of JSP. So in JSP, how you're going to embed that Java import statement? So you have an import attribute for that. Okay, so how you're going to do that? Import equals to, and you have to pass the value that which package you want to import. So I just want to import java.util.date. The date is a class which is available inside your util package, which is going to return to me the current date of your system. Okay, just printing that value that today is, we are having the date function which is been invoked. Why we are writing the new operator? Because it has been considered as your constructor. Okay, so if I'm having a class called as date, so the new operator is going to first of all will create an instance of that date class. It will invoke the date constructor, which is responsible to return to me the current date. Fine, so I hope you have understood this import attribute. Now, the next one is what your extends attribute. Generally, you're not going to make use of it. It is very rarely been used. Okay, it is like been used for to define the parent class, and that can be inherited from your generated servlet. Okay, so that is like for inheriting. Simple, in the simple terms, what we can say, the extends attribute. Why we are making use of it? If you want to make, or if you want to inherit any parent class which is been generated by your servlets. Then we have the another attribute, that is what info. If I am defining any information about my JSP page, okay, so I can do that. What I can do, I can just make use of @sign. I'll have a page attribute, and sorry, page directive. I'm saying that I want to use a page directive, and I want to make use of info attribute. Okay, so it will understand that you are providing some information to your JSP page, and if you are providing some information over here, it can be later retrieved by your servlet, just to make the servlet understand that what exactly that page is meant for. So okay, so it can be invoked with the help of the get servlet info method inside your servlet. Okay, so if you're writing the Java code, servlet code, in that you can have the use of this get servlet info, which will try to invoke the information if you have provided inside your JSP directive. Okay, and you can provide it with the info attribute. Now next is what your buffer attribute. It is going to define the buffer size. So how it is going to be written, at the rate, again the symbol, we are going to make use of page directive, we are making use of buffer attribute, we are defining the buffer size over here. Like that way you can also define the buffer size. Next one is what your language. You can make use of language attribute, again at the rate page directive, and language is equals to which language you want to make, like you want to specify for the scripting language. By default it is Java, you can change also. And the next attribute is what your is el ignored. Okay, so this is going to be like ignoring the expression language. So we have written that we can ignore the expression language. This EL stands for expression language. Okay, we can ignore the expression language in JSP. Now what do you mean by expression language? This expression language was being introduced in JSP in the 2.0 version of your JSP. It was meant, and expression language is itself also having some additional tags, some additional the custom tags which has been included. It is going to be used to have the full access to your Java beans, which maybe your JSP is not going to, or JSP tags will not going to have it. But your expression language, which was being introduced, it is having the whole access to your Java beans. You can understand with the help of the expression language what is happening in your Java beans. It is being used for both arithmetic as well as logical operation. Okay, so if you want to make, if you don't want to make use of expression language, so you can just ignore it. So what is going to happen over here, by default its value is always been set to false. That means it is by default is enabled. Okay, so you can just say that true. True means you are going to ignore it. Fine. False means you are not going to ignore it, you are going to make use of it. So we are going to make use of at the rate sign. We'll have a page attribute, we'll have an is el ignored attribute. We are defining it as what, true. So now the el is going to be ignored. Then we have the error page. Just one or two things are remaining, students. I'll just finish it off, and then next lecture we'll finish the chapter also. Fine. Now we'll have an error page. This attribute is going to define the error page. So if any exception occur in any of the page, and if I want to make the redirection happen to the specific page whenever the error or the exception occurs. So if I have a 10 page, and I know that there is one page which I have defined is just meant for showing the errors or the exception to the client. Okay, the message for the exception and the error has been written into that specific page. So what I am going to do it, I am going to make all the redirection happen to that error page if at all error is happening. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to make use of at the rate sign, we'll make use of directive, we'll make use of attribute, that is what your error page, and we'll write the error page name where the redirection should happen if any exception or error happens. Okay, so if I'm saying that 100 divides by 0, it's an exception, so it should get redirected to your my error page.jsp where maybe the exception message or an error message has been written. Okay, and I think this is your last thing. We'll just complete this and we'll stop the lecture. Is error page. So just to make your program understand that whatever your current page is your error page. Okay, so automatically nothing happens in Java, so you have to make understand your the program, that whatever you're writing, and if you're making one out of that 10 page, if you're making one page as an error page, so you have to even write the code for that. You have to make that page to understand that okay, I am the error page where the redirection is going to happen. Okay, so what I'm going to make use of at the rate sign again, or the directive, I'm making use of page directive, I'm using the making use of the attribute, that is what is error page, and I'm making the boolean value, that is what, true. Once I'll make it true, I'll have to just pass one message which is been shown to the client whenever the exception will happen. Okay, so this program will understand, okay, it is an error page where the redirection is going to be coming. Fine. So here I'll just stop the lecture. I'll just have a few minutes to have your queries. If you have any students, you can just ask me. Okay, we are still 6 minutes with us. I hope you have understood whatever we have learned. I think we have started almost from your uh, comments. Okay, I hope you have understood the server side and the client side comments, how it is going to be written in the tag. Starting from the percentage sign, you have to write inside your backslash or forward slash double star. Okay, so that way you can have your server side comments. Client side comments always starts from exclamatory mark, ends with double hyphen. Then we have seen the example also for the same. Then we have learned about the JSP page and JSP document. JSP page is always following your HTML format. JSP document is following your XML format. So XML format means it is going to follow some certain rules. Okay, that rules we all know. Starts and end tag must should be saved with .jspx extension, and it has one root element along with the version defined, which version we are using it, and we have to give the namespace because your XML should or your document should be understood separately, identically. Okay, then we started with our Jsp elements. So that was your Jsp scripting elements. We had 4 types. Scriptlet tag, where you are allowed to embed your Java code. We have an expression tag, which will replace your out.print by equals to sign. We have the declaration tag, which will allow me to declare methods as well as variables both. Only difference is that the declaration will happen outside your JSP service method. And then we have a comment tag. Fine. We started with your directive elements, where we have learned about the page directive. We have still include and tag lib directive remaining. So we are going to do it in the next lecture. In page directive, we have learned enough attributes. We have learned about the import attribute. We have extends attribute. We have language attribute, is el ignored, that is expression language ignored attribute. Okay, so we have error page attribute, is